Okay, fans. I think I am live streaming, so yeah. We're gonna be watching this video about the complete Five Nights at Freddy's story explained, and and I decided to live stream this. It's because it's just 1 hour, 21 minutes and 19 seconds, and so I just want to get this done and get it over with. And so if I just make a video of this on my phone, or I just want to get this over with. So anyway, I'm just gonna hit play in 3, 2, 1.
So I'm doing the thing. Unlike most of the horror series that I cover, I feel like today's horror series needs no introduction. Five Nights at Freddy's has quickly become one of the most popular video game IPs ever. Five Nights at Freddy's currently has 9 games in its main series, as well as over a dozen books written about it and countless fan games. Not only that, but even people who hate the games have to admit that it was probably the most impactful indie horror series of all time. And the craziest part about it is, to this day, no one really knows what happened. Like, if you play through the games, it's very clear that there is a story happening in the background. However, the gameplay always takes center stage. And despite the countless Reddit threads and YouTube videos made on the topic, there still doesn't seem to be a clear answer of what happened in the games themselves. So I'm here to throw my hat in the ring and present to you what I believe to be the story of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. See, this video started out, I just wanted to cover the Fnaf VHS tapes, because a couple people, specifically Squimpus McGrimpus, which is a funny name, has made fantastic horror set within the universe of Five Nights at Freddy's, but taking its own story direction with its own characters and events. However, after getting all of my research done for that, and then thinking how I would describe it to you all, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to someone who wasn't familiar with the Five Nights series. So I asked myself, what is the minimal amount of information I need to tell you about the Five Nights series in order for you to understand the VHS tapes? And that eventually devolved into me breaking down the entire story with all of the characters and major events. So I'm doing great. However, I'm only partially joking on that, because I do believe that the Five Nights at Freddy's storyline is a very interesting story that deserves to be told. However, if you're familiar with the series at all, then you probably know that the problem with telling the story is the story itself. See, the story of the game takes place across the first 7 entries. The games in chronological order, or at least my chronological order, because we can't even agree on when the games happened. But in my chronological order, it goes 4, 2, 1, 5, 3, 6, 7. Yeah. And the reason that it's so confusing for newcomers to the series to try to figure out what's going on is because anytime you search something like Five Nights at Freddy's Theory, you're greeted with videos from 5 years ago, whenever the 3rd game was out, so we didn't know the events in the 4th game were going to happen. But then the theories from the 4th game didn't know that the events of the 5th game were going to happen. So people kept trying to glue together a puzzle because all the pieces weren't out yet. But now I, in the future, with the privilege of hindsight, can put together the puzzle the way that I believe it was always meant to be viewed. And I'm going to do that in a kind of controversial way. I want this video to serve, again, not only as my take on the timeline for those out there who are a fan of the series, but also as an introductory point so that new people coming in are able to view all the information and better understand the story. And when you look at the entire series as one narrative, I think it becomes far more interesting and far more terrifying. So in order to achieve both of those ends, and again putting emphasis on the fact that this is a cool story that deserves to be told, I am simply not going to explain myself. At least not entirely explain myself. Like, several of the things on this board go against the majority of the community's interpretation of what happened. So whenever I have a real controversial take, I'm going to explain that. But like over here, I have one of William's children listed as being named Evan. In order for you to understand the story, I don't need to sit here for 10 minutes and tell you about we got the name Evan, because in the survival book, which is an accompany book for the games, they found a series of numbers on one page and then added them together by the page number at the bottom, and then went over to a letter grid and input those values and got the name Evan. Because if you're not familiar with the series, that's how we found out everything. And again, while I think stuff like that is cool, more people, at least currently, are focused on if his name's Evan or not, rather than the entire plot and story of what happened. And I think that the latter is far more interesting. So I know this has been a long introduction, but there's a lot to explain. As always, there's going to be timestamps in the description for what I'm describing, but I'm going to go through the timeline, or my opinion of the timeline, for the Five Nights at Freddy's video game series, as well as talk about the characters. And then from there, we will begin talking about the VHS tapes and the other YouTube horror shorts based around Five Nights at Freddy's, because I think they're really cool. And if any of this sounds cool to you, stick around after the ad, as we're going to get into pretty much the entirety of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. But before you listen to me ramble for an absurd length of time, let's make sure you're listening the right way with today's sponsor, Raycon earbuds. With over 48,000 5-star reviews, Raycon is the best audio quality and the best package available. Thanks to the rubberized oil design of Raycon earbuds, not only do they fit comfortably in your ear, but as you can see, they're very slim and discreet while you're wearing them. And thanks to that design, whenever I sit down at my computer to play video games or edit videos, I can just leave them in and it's never a problem. Not only that, but as you can see, Raycon earbuds latch comfortably into your ear, and regardless of how you move your head, they won't fall out. Not only that, but Raycon also offers a 32-hour battery life with 8 hours of playtime, so as soon as you charge them up, you're good to go for the rest of the day. Furthermore, Raycons offer a push-button feature on the side of both earbuds, so if you need to skip through the music, or pause the music, or even pick up a call, you can do that by simply tapping the earbuds and never taking your phone out of your pocket. And thanks to Raycon, if you go to the link in the description at buyraycon.com/Wendigoon, you will be able to get your Raycon earbuds for 15% off. That's right, just go to the link below at buyraycon.com/Wendigoon and you will be able to get this fantastic audio package at 15% off. What's not to love? Thank you all so much for watching the ad, and thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring the video. It really does mean the most. I hope you all check them out. Link is in the description, and we are back to the video. We are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always, thank you for watching. The first thing to understand about the Five Nights at Freddy's series is that at its core, it's the story of two people. And those two people are William Afton and Henry Emily. Henry and William were business partners, and they went in as partners together on a new branch of children's entertainment. This new style of children's entertainment would be demonstrated on their first business venture together, a restaurant known as Fredbear's Family Diner. With later entries of the series, as many people have pointed out, you could think of the restaurants as a sort of Chuck E. Cheese establishment. The kind of places that would have singing animatronics, as well as arcade games and pizza parties for children of all ages. However, at least in the beginning, Fredbear's wasn't like that. It was a much smaller establishment that boasted two animatronics. The down-to-earth, homey nature of it is even present in the name of Fredbear's Family Diner. It certainly seems like a passion project, not only in the name and very nature of a children's entertainment business, but also in the attitudes of the two owners. From everything we see later in the series, it seems like Henry was the business and managerial side of the partnership, while William was more interested in the day-to-day operations and specifically the construction of the animatronics. What made these animatronics unique, and the thing that set their business apart from other competitors, was the addition of something William dubbed as spring lock suits. The core idea behind a spring lock suit is that it is initially a normal animatronic. However, if someone were to twist the beer on the back of the costume, the animatronic parts would slip to the sides and allow a worker to step inside of the animatronic itself and use it as a costume. Whereas at other establishments, the children would see an animatronic on stage and then a worker would come out to serve them pizza in a kind of dollar store mascot version of the costume. At Fredbear's Family Diner, they could watch the animatronics get off stage themselves and come play with the kids. It seems like in the beginning that was part of the goal for William, to keep the magic alive in the mind of a child. And in the beginning, it seems that they had such humble beginnings that William and Henry were the people running the costumes themselves. Despite being owners, they would take the time to step into their own respective spring-lock suits and go play and entertain the children. Henry would pilot the restaurant's namesake, the Fredbear suit itself, whereas William would slip into the secondary mascot of the business, a golden rabbit costume which would later be known to the community as Spring Bonnie. Perhaps part of this dedication to the project came in the form of their own children. William having 3 children himself, Elizabeth, Michael, and Evan, and Henry having 1 daughter by the name of Charlie. I know that in the books it mentions Henry has a son as well, however he's never mentioned anywhere in the games, so again, I'm just talking the games, he doesn't exist up here. Something that I want to mention really quick on this timeline is if an event is inside of a red box, that is a definite year that event happened. There's not a lot of surefire times we get in the series, so the few that you see with the red box are times we know this happened on this day. The blue boxes are more so guesstimates. In other words, the thing I'm about to talk about says 1980, but it could have also been 81 or late 70s, or the year doesn't really matter, 1980 is just a guess. Looking at the timeline, we can see that William and Henry started Fredbear's Family Diner around 1970. And then, thanks in no small part to the dedication of the owners themselves, as well as the invention of spring-lock suits, a decade later, they are able to expand their brand, as around 1980, William opens Afton Robotics, and William and Henry continue to expand the business itself with Fazbear Entertainment, which becomes a sort of industrial chain of Freddy Fazbear restaurants. Things were going great for the two. Henry was continuing to manage the brand as it was expanding, and William continued to create more odd and interesting robotic figures. One of these inventions that we see in the games is a small Fredbear plush that seems to have a camera inside of it, as well as a series of animatronics later dubbed Funtime animatronics that it seems William was building during this time. Everything was going great, and it seemed that nothing would stop the pair from accomplishing great things in the realm of children's entertainment. That was until the accident that happened in 1983. For whatever reason, it seems that Evan was particularly terrified of the animatronics his father was building, and no one's really certain why. People who have gathered information from the books have speculated that perhaps William was purposefully making his child afraid of the animatronics because William knew that they were dangerous. Because, you know, animatronic suits that have like wires and gears holding the animatronic pieces from flying back into place and impaling you, it's called foreshadowing, would be dangerous to go around, especially if William is building them in his house. From what we see in future games, it even seems that William had put cameras throughout his house so that while he was working on his animatronics, he could monitor exactly what his son was doing. In the meantime, Evan's older brother, Michael, began to torment Evan over his fear of these creatures. See, at this point, the brand had extended from not only Fredbear's Family Diner, but there was also Fredbear and Friends, and there were several other mascots that would stand on stage along with Fredbear. One of these was a character by the name of Foxy. So, Michael would wear a Foxy mask and begin tormenting his brother because he thought it was funny. William didn't seem to mind this, perhaps even encouraging it, as he saw it as another way to keep his son safe. The events of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, which again according to me is the earliest game in the timeline, followed the nightmares of young Evan Afton. The reason the animatronics look so over-the-top creepy and terrifying is because these aren't real animatronics. These are the nightmare imaginations of a young child who's afraid of his father's creations. And Evan is spending these sleepless nights trying to evade these creatures of his own imagination. That is until the end of the week, whenever Afton and his family go to Fredbear's Family Diner. While there, Michael and his friends, all wearing the mascots' faces, begin to torment Evan and make him get closer and closer to the animatronics themselves. Until Michael makes a joke that Evan wants to give Fredbear a kiss, to which the boys put Evan into Fredbear's mouth, and whenever the animatronic bites down...
Oh yeah, that's the 5 of 87. That's the part
Evan
that
doesn't
he
die
said.
yet, at least not immediately.
That's like
His family rushes him to the hospital
End of
where he
night
remains
5, I know
comatose
that.
for the next couple days. In the final levels of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, it's possible when looking back at the bedside to see things like a hospital IV bag or flower pot. Not only that, but the nightmares within the final nights of Five Nights at Freddy's 4 transition from being the general different animatronics from the restaurant to just nightmarish apparitions of Fredbear himself. While Evan is lying in a hospital bed, we hear Michael tell Evan that he's sorry and ask for his forgiveness. Until the Fredbear plush itself begins to speak to Evan. As established earlier, this is one of William Afton's camera plushies, so it's safe to assume that this is William speaking to his son. In his final moments, we hear William say that it's going to be okay, and that he's going to put Evan back together. Before everything fades out, Evan seemingly passes away. Now, if you're a big aficionado of the series, you may disagree with that placement in the story. However, this, as well as the events that happen directly afterwards, are so debated, and there's so many different options of when this happened, or this happened before this, or blah blah blah. But again, as a story, this makes the most sense to me as the catalyst that began everything. William, a man who wanted to entertain children and managed to do so for decades, began his mad descent when one of his children used one of William's own creations to kill his other child. And then in that father's desperation, he begins experiments and procedures to try to maintain the soul of a child. See, that's where the horror comes from. For those of you who may have not known anything else about the Five Nights at Freddy's games, you've probably heard it has to do with dead children possessing animatronics. And while the rules of it aren't explicitly laid clear, at least not in the video games themselves, it seems that if a child is killed by an animatronic or a piece of their body is put into that animatronic after death, that their soul possesses the animatronic itself. You can essentially think of it as a haunt or a haunted house. If someone dies in a derelict mansion, then they haunt that derelict mansion. If someone dies and their body is put inside of an animatronic, then their spirit possesses that animatronic. And that is exactly what happens here. While we do not know the details of how or why or what happened, either because Fredbear killed Evan or potentially afterwards William put pieces or all of Evan's body into Fredbear, Evan's spirit possessed the Fredbear animatronic. See, now the color coding makes sense. This wasn't just a Sunday school teacher gimmick to make the letters look cool. It had a purpose, because now Evan is the spirit of Fredbear. I don't know if you can see Fredbear good. If I turn the lights off, the reflection isn't there. So yeah, Fredbear is Evan, at least for now. I'm not sure how, perhaps just being around Fredbear and seeing signs that his child was still inside of the suit, or maybe even some kind of weird science that William applied to the suit itself whenever he made it. Either way, it seems that William figured out his son Evan was inside of the Fredbear suit. As you can imagine, not only the death of William's child, but now his child being trapped in a suit of his own invention changed William's life forever. It seems that from here, William wanted to better understand what had happened to Evan. So he began to modify the aforementioned Funtime animatronics with the express purpose of trapping another child so that he could figure out how the whole soul possession works. His primary contender in this being an animatronic known as Circus Baby. Circus Baby was specifically designed with a giant claw inside of its chest cavity, as well as sensors that would always calculate and determine how many people were currently in the room. He did this with the intent of Circus Baby managing to get a child alone all by themselves so that its claw could then come out and grab the child before dragging it into its chest cavity to be killed.
She can dance. She can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank, translating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream. With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
This is, at least according to my timeline, the beginning of William's evil and murderous intent. It seems that the death of his own child pushed William to such extreme lengths that he was now willing to kill another kid in order to either see what happened to his son or perhaps even find a way to bring him back. During the construction of Circus Baby, William's daughter Elizabeth was in love with it, probably because it was an animatronic that looked like a young girl and had the ability to serve ice cream. On the opening day of a new Freddy Fazbear's sister location, known as Circus Baby's Pizza World, Elizabeth managed to get away from her father and go see Circus Baby all by herself. The Circus Baby animatronic, calculating that Elizabeth was the only one in the room, put out a piece of ice cream to serve her before grabbing her and bringing her into her chest, to which Elizabeth was killed.
Did you know that I was on stage once? It wasn't for very long, only one day.
Comment down below.
I would always count the children. I'm not sure why. I was always acutely aware of how many there were in the room with me.
Comment down below.
There were 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Something happened when there was one.
I might probably get
a little girl standing by herself. I was no longer myself, and I stopped singing. My stomach opened, and there was ice cream. I couldn't move, at least, not until she stepped closer. There was screaming for a moment, but only for a moment.
I can barely hear.
I still hear her sometimes. Why did that happen?
We're never shown exactly how William reacted to this, although I imagine this is never what he wanted. In Five Nights at Freddy's 5, also known as Sister Location, Elizabeth mentions many times that her father tried to keep her away, and she specifically went against his will in order to go see Circus Baby by herself. It seems that he didn't want Circus Baby to kill his daughter Elizabeth, however that's exactly what happened. Despite this, however, his plan seemed to work, and the soul of Elizabeth began to possess the animatronic known as Circus Baby. Now, whenever Evan died, it was simply seen as an accident. While Michael and his friends caused the death of Evan, they were children as well, and it could be seen as a bullying incident gone wrong. However, when Elizabeth disappeared, that raised a lot more questions. We're told in the games that the sister location known as Circus Baby's Pizza World, again the place where Elizabeth was killed by Circus Baby, we are told that it was closed due to gas leaks. This obviously being a cover-up for this event here. However, there is no way this could have happened without Henry knowing. He was essentially the acting CEO over Fazbear's Entertainment, and there's no way that they would close down the brand new location on the first day due to gas leaks without him knowing any better. What I think happened, and this is supported by things that happened shortly after this, is that Henry found out what William was up to. Whenever William sees that Henry has created a robot whose sole purpose is to bring in children and then kill them, it probably raised a lot of red flags. We're never told this in-game, but perhaps at the same time, Henry also saw that William was trying to rebuild his son Evan, or put Evan back into the Fredbear costume, or whatever I will put you back together means. Either way, Henry was so disgusted, at least by what he saw with Circus Baby, that he kicked William out of the company. Potentially, Henry never alerted the authorities, because for one, him and William had been friends for at least 10 years, and two, William's actions has caused the death of his own daughter. So perhaps Henry saw that as punishment enough. Either way, Henry didn't alert the authorities, but he did kick William out of the business. There is a scene within a minigame in Five Nights at Freddy's 6, also known as Pizzeria Simulator. The minigame's called Midnight Motorist, and there is a part in it whenever you're playing as a little sprite that is believed to be William Afton. Again, everything in this entire series is entirely circumstantial. And while playing as William Afton, you walk up to a building called Junior's. Now, a place called Junior's is never mentioned anywhere else in the series. However, general consensus is that Junior's is the first offshoot location of Fredbear's Family Diner, which is a place known as Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. So whenever William goes to the door of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the worker at the front door says, "You know you can't be here, don't make this any harder than it has to be." Which means the person at the front door, either Henry or an employee of Henry, recognizes William and says, "You can't be here, don't make this worse than it has to be." A lot of people say that minigame takes place during the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. However, I don't agree due to something I'll mention in a minute. In the rest of that Midnight Motorist minigame, it seems that William goes home, to which someone on the couch tells him, quote, "Leave him alone, he's had a rough day." Before William goes to someone's room, yells at them to let him in, before he walks outside and sees that whoever was in the room broke the window and went to, quote, "that place again." Now, this is all speculation because most of the room yells at them to let him in. Before he walks, "Leave him alone, he's had a rough day." Before William goes to someone's room, yells at them to let him
I told you not to close the door.
in. Before he walks outside and sees that whoever was in the room broke the window and went to, quote, "that
ran off to that place again. He will never be sorry when he gets back.
place again." Now, this is all speculation because most of the stuff in this series is speculation. What are you going to do? It seems to me like this person sitting on the couch is probably William's wife, and although she's never seen in the series again, that's the only character that can make sense here. And the child that he is berating is his only surviving child, Michael. Michael is now terrified by his father and remorseful for the actions that he himself committed that led to the death of Evan. Perhaps whenever William says that Michael is going to that place again, he's referencing Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, because maybe Michael's trying to figure out what happened to his sister. Like I said, that was speculation, but it makes the most sense to me. The core takeaway from it is that William is now being kicked out of the locations that he helped create by his business partner, Henry. And while Henry was in his right to do so, I mean, he found William with a child scooping animatronic that he built. Like, you can't let that guy keep working around children. Henry becomes paranoid of the idea that William will try to retaliate. During this time, William makes a new animatronic. An animatronic known as the marionette or just the puppet. This puppet is designed for the express purpose of protecting Henry's daughter Charlotte, also known as Charlie. One day, William, perhaps in the midst of a rage towards his business partner Henry, William decides that he is going to take from Henry what William had accidentally taken from himself. Again, as we can see from many games placed throughout the video game series, one day Charlie is locked outside, to which William Afton pulls up in his vehicle, kills the young child before driving away and leaving her body in an alley. Now, normally, the marionette puppet would have stopped this from happening, as its entire purpose is to follow Charlie around and protect her. However, during this event, it seems that the puppet was trapped and unable. The marionette puppet would have stopped this from happening, as its entire purpose is to follow Charlie around and protect her. However, during this event, it seems that the puppet was trapped and unable to get to Charlie until it was too late. Eventually, the puppet works its way outside in order to find the young girl, to which whenever the puppet gets there, the deed has already been done. The puppet, unable to do anything else, lies down next to Charlie, to which it seems through whatever supernatural means is filled throughout this narrative, the spirit of Charlie possesses the puppet. Perhaps William killed Charlie outside that day because it was just a moment of opportunity, or perhaps he did it away from the animatronics because at this point 2 of his own children had been killed in the proximity of an animatronic and their soul had been taken into it. And perhaps William killed Charlie outside in order to prevent her from possessing an animatronic. However, despite his efforts, as noted here, the spirit of Charlie now possesses the marionette puppet. I like the idea of Charlie being the first murder victim of William, not only because it matches the story more and it makes the first intentional kill more purposeful, but in the events that follow, the animatronics are only possessed because the puppet attaches that spirit to each animatronic. So in order for any of the victims to possess future animatronics, the puppet has to be dead first. Not only that, but a line that Henry says in Pizzeria Simulator heavily implies that his child was the first victim of William's killing spree.
Not until I undo what he has done and heal this wound. A wound first inflicted on me, but then one that I let bleed out to cause all of this.
So due to Charlie's death, the restaurant is shut down. A couple years later, it reopens as the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. I think it is shortly after the reopening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza that the missing children's incident occurs. For those that don't know, there is a mention in the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, and at the time this was the only lore for the overall series that we ever got, in which a newspaper clipping says that 5 children went missing at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and that's the reason it got shut down.
Oh.
That Freddy Fazbear's, in which a newspaper clipping...
5 children now reported missing. I'm trying to read this, guys. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where a man, a cartoon mascot lived into a background while I can't read that. The bodies themselves were found. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
says that 5 children went missing at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and that's the reason it got shut down. That Freddy Fazbear's Pizza that got shut down because 5 children went missing is the current pizza place that I'm talking about in the timeline. And I'll pull the timeline back up in a second to look at, but I want to add the final names to this board first. But in short, we have the original Fredbear's Family Diner, and then we have some restaurants like Circus Baby's Pizza World that open then get closed, and maybe some other projects that we're not told about in the series. But after Fredbear's, we get Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Charlie is killed outside of it, so...
Well, you know what, guys? I'm just going to go in this video here. I'm definitely not gonna live stream through it. It's because I'm just gonna be dead tired tonight, and that's the time right there, 10:37. And now I'm just gonna stop the live stream here, and I gotta remember 29:04, which I might just I'll probably type that in my notes app, and so that way once I get back to my dad's, and then I can continue to do that, or continue to do this, and then I can actually hear, which I might probably watch this myself tomorrow, and tomorrow's Sunday, so yeah, anyway, I'm not going to Dad's Sunday because it's summer and all that, so yeah. Anyways, I'm just going to go in this video. I am not going to say my outro. It's because I only say my intro and outro once I'm making videos and it's not a live stream. If I'm doing a live stream, I do not say my intro and outro. If it's just a regular video and you guys are not watching me while I'm making it, and then that's my and then the intro and outro is coming. So yeah, anyway guys, see you guys in the next video, and remember tomorrow I'm gonna be making another Five Nights at Freddy's reaction video from Blaze, so yeah, so that's still coming.